Hello, everyone, and happy Purim. I'm Captain America, retired, and this is Catwoman.
Meow.
Exactly. So, we're coming to you with the Purim thing, and
And you look lovely, really.
thank you. I think you look fantastic yourself.
I just don't understand your T-shirt.
Oh, that. Yeah, this is continuity from last year. You dressed up like a rainbow kind of like pony. So
It wasn't. It wasn't a pony. It was a unicorn.
It's all I got.
There's a massive difference. But okay, for continuity's sake, we have a it's colorful pony.
It's like a knockoff My Little Pony situation. But anyway, for continuity's sake.
Listen, I just want to say thank you to Rivka but Esther that made these beautiful Purim costumes that we are wearing today. And we also dedicate this shiur for her רפואה שלמה. רבקה, באמת תודה רבה. אנחנו מאוד, זה ממש מקסים. תודה.
Thank you. And just so everyone knows, it's Tamir under here. And this is Anarina. I know you can't tell, but now, so that's what's up. So, what do we got, Catwoman?
Okay, so we've got Purim, and I think the basics, just to run past again, is basically the letter that represents this month is the kuf. It's the only letter that goes really down, and that means that through the power of Adar, we can really, really go into the dark side, into matters where we can then extract the netzutzot, the sparks that we need for the redemption, And what helps us with that is the two major things of Adar. And the one is nafochu. It means that we can turn everything on its head. So the things that were bad, you can absolutely turn, or you can go right in there and you can extract it. And how do we do it? Marbim b'simcha.
Much joy and happiness.
Much joy and happiness. And how do you do that? You work on that. It is your job. You don't wait for Hashem to give it to you. You have to create that happiness. So that's what we're here for. That is the basics of Adar. But we've spoken about most of these things already. So I think this year we just want to go a little bit deeper. Because everything about Adar is the hiddenness, the story of the hiddenness of God behind matters. And that's what we want to focus on this time.
Yes, right on. So we've learned from years past, right? I mean, if you know, again, the basics about Purim, we're just going to give a quick recap. The holidays, right? In the world to come, everything is pretty much going to disappear except for Purim. Now, a lot of people are, wait a minute, but it says in the prophets that even the nations will come up to Jerusalem. I'm not talking about the Aliyah L'Regel. All these things take place during the days of Mashiach and the third temple and everything, until everything gets to the end of the millennia.
So I just want to say, so you referred to when we read in Zechariah about Sukkot and the nations coming up, that's happening in the days of Mashiach, and then something else comes after that.
Exactly, in the days of Mashiach. So it pretty much goes like this. Once we get to the end of the 6,000 year, which was, we got the candle back there behind the Catwoman's head over there. Yeah, it's not lit right now, but the world is divided into three sections. It's a Tohu and Tovavo. It's a chaos and the age of Torah, and then the Messianic age, which is the last 2,000 years. Once that time is done, this world as we know it is done, and then we go over into the next 1,000 years. That's what I'm talking about, because by then we won't need the rectification that all the other holidays are necessary. So what's going to happen is basically Mashiach ben David comes, the third and final temple will be rebuilt. It's very cool because we actually have to build it here in this world, but it's just waiting for us in heaven. And what's going to happen is it's going to kind of fuse on top of it, making it something that is both 100% physical and spiritual, sort of like a metaphysical building, if you will. It's called Meshuchlal. That's what our sages say about it. It's something like we've never seen before, spiritual and physical combined. And so it's going to open up the uninhibited portal that is currently over Temple Mount. And it's like a gateway for all the goodness to flow into this world until the final rectification takes place. Once that happens and this world becomes perfect, in other words, all of Israel who said Na'aseh v'nishma to the Torahs, that's right.
We will do and we will hear.
In Mount Sinai, once everything is perfect and this physical world is fully metukan, fully rectified, then we go into the world to come. So the highest point in this world, when it is at its peak, is the lowest point in the world to come, and then we just continue to raise from there. Think about if it's like a pyramid, and then you flip over the pyramid.
Nafochu.
What she said. Very good, Catwoman.
And it will be turned upside down.
Yes. And then we go for 1,000 years, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, only to ascend even higher than the level of Adam when he was first created, even before he was placed into the Garden of Eden. But I digress. That's a teaching for another time. But now, since the world is already rectified, the only holiday is going to be Purim. So
why Purim?
Why Purim? Okay, let's talk about Purim's awesomeness. I'm having a very hard time seeing, so I'm just gonna. Okay, so for instance, one of the cool things about Purim. Did you know that Abraham, who was the first, obviously, was the first man to be circumcised, the first person to enter into that covenant with God, took place when? On Yom HaKippurim. Now, as we have learned plenty of times, that Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement, it's the holiest day in our calendar, right? It is as Yom. Yom HaKippurim is Yom Kippurim. It is a day like Purim. That's what it says. It's like Purim. It does not say that Purim is like Yom HaKippurim, meaning that Purim ultimately has a much higher status, right? We know that Yom Kippur rectifies this world. So how could it be like something that is on a higher status? Well, what's higher than this world? We're talking about the world to come, baby. As Yom Kippur is only for this world, Purim is like is for the world to come. And so when we read the Megillah, it has when we read about the seal of the king, or the ring, the signet of the king, and he signed and sealed it, for instance, in Esther 8:8, this is a hint towards the seal and the sign of the king, that hopefully every Jew should, be marked by that. And we know that anything signed and sealed by the king can never be undone, such as the decree during Purim. So just like Yom Kippur represents the written Torah, Purim represents the oral Torah and the world to come. And how so? How so?
How so?
How so? Because along with all the halachot, and all the tiniest details, which most people just seem to toss away, this is actually how we apply the written Torah to our lives. And it is also everything that we know. The written Torah includes the coming of the two Messiahs, the building of the temple, the resurrection of the dead, and everything we know of the world to come. In other words, none of this is actually written down in the Tanakh, right? So, a lot of people say, oh yeah, you know all about Mashiach and the building of the world to come. Where do you know it from? Because I haven't seen it written anywhere except the oral law.
Because it wasn't written down. It was passed from one generation to the other from the times of Moshe.
Indeed. From the times of Moshe. So, Catwoman, tell me something.
So I want to say something about the Oral Torah as well. As you say that this is the gateway, right? Purim is the gateway. The Oral Torah is the gateway into the world to come. So let's try and figure that out, because we want to focus on the Oral Torah today. So I'm going to say something now, and then I'm going to really give you a beautiful example later on about Adar and how the sages extrapolated something amazing. But okay, so where do we get it from? How do we know? And this is the remes that we see in Nehemiah 13 verse 9. Are you okay there?
I'm okay. I'll make it through. I'm Captain America retired.
Right.
I'll make it through.
I guess you can do this.
You like my wings?
Don't worry, you can do this all day. Okay, so we have Nehemiah 13 verse 9, and it says, Ve'al har Sinai yaradeta. So that means we're speaking about what happened on Mount Sinai. I'm in Nehemiah 13 verse 9, and it says, Vadaber עמהם משמיים ותיתן להם משפטים ישרים ותורות אמת. תורות. At Mount Sinai, 2 Torahs were given. The one was the written, the one was the oral. And obviously Hashem knew that things are going to happen, and he's going to have to split these two in half. And at the end, they come together, and there are a people that will be able to hold them together. For the rest, only the written will be out there. As with Purim also, the Oral Torah is much more hidden. You have to extrapolate out of it. Okay, so how do we explain the Oral Torah? It's like going on holiday, right? I tell you...
What's that?
So I say, Captain America, I want to go on holiday. Will you look after all my cats?
I'm allergic to cats.
My dogs. Okay, then I'll go to somebody else. And I say, you guy over there, will you watch over it? You know what? I'll ask the Hulk to watch over it. And I say to him, would you like to just, watch over my house and just keep an eye on it? You have to feed the cats and the dog and just the plants. There are 1,000 of them. And just take the mail out of the mailbox so that nobody knows. You know, the whole spiel. And like a Purim spiel. And the Hulk says, yeah, fine, we'll do it. I'll do it for you. And I say, thank you very much. I'll see you. And he's going to stop me. And he says, whoa. Okay, I said, I will look after your cats and your dog and everything. But how do I do it? Oh, so the cat food is in this cupboard. And you have to give it so many and these 2 cats you have to separate. The dog eats in the other room. There's a code that you have to deactivate before you come into there's a code. Deactivate the alarm before you come in, activate it again afterwards. The sprinklers work on a system. All these things, all the little details, exactly how to break it down and how to do it, that's the Oral Torah. So that's the basics to understand that the Oral Torah tells us exactly how to walk it out.
Yes, I'm envisioning the Hulk inside a house. Not good for the house. Maybe if he's before the Hulk.
Maybe if he works with animals, it will calm him, and watering the plants. Definitely.
Okay.
I think it was a brilliant example.
Definitely brilliant example.
Okay.
With Dr. Banner. Okay, so bottom line is the Oral Torah it teaches you exactly what, when, and how to do. Because without it, then you have the Torah, just like every other nation in the world. They have full access to our Torah. Go ahead. But we can see the difference still between all the nations and between our nations. And when all the nations say that, the Oral Torah is not relevant, it's witchcraft, all this stuff, no problem. We are called a nation of Pharisees. We are called to be different from the nations. You all have access to our Torah, but when it comes to the Oral Torah, first of all,
the real way how to walk it out.
Exactly, the real way of how to log it out. That's hidden, and these are secrets, hidden secrets, things that are concealed. So most things about Purim are hidden within the text, and not only in Megillat Esther throughout the whole Torah, but in particular Megillat Esther. It is called the book of Esther after all. Esther comes from the word hester, to conceal, as God said.
Yeah,
Esther panai mehem.
Exactly, and that is at the end of days. That's where it was referred to. I will hide within the hiding of my face. So we have a double hiding, and that's why we need Purim specifically, and together with the Oral Torah, to help us to navigate the intense darkness. I don't know about you guys, but the more we get closer to the redemption, the heavier it gets. It's almost like you walk through mud or gel. It's like you can almost not move. The hiddenness and the darkness is so thick. And the only way that we have to do this is by applying what we learn in Esther, and specifically the halachot that we have in the Oral Torah.
Yeah, I mean the Oral Torah, it can't just be given to you. You have to work for it. You have to fast and pray for it, as we saw in the book of Esther. You have to never relent because your life actually does depend on it. So if you only read the text, like we said, in the Hebrew language or in any other language, you might read the book of Esther and say, okay, it's a story. There's a good guy, there's a bad guy, there's a king, there's this, there's that. There's a twist and there's a happy ending. Not for those guys, but for us anyway. So yay. But then still, if you just look at it like that, you're missing 99.99999999999999999% of everything. So then why would you do that? You're just just reading the words, right? For instance, I'll give you some fun, right? So Achashverosh, how many medinot, how many countries was he the king over?
127.
127, exactly. Medina. Now, the number 127, where have we seen this number in the Torah before?
I don't know.
Okay, so 127 was the years of the life of Sarah Imenu.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
And we know that Sarah Imenu, a spark of her neshama was incepted within the neshama of Esther. That is where Esther drew her strength from Sarah Imenu. 127 years, and then Esther became the ruler of 127 countries because 1 year after they were officially married, her and Achashverosh, that guy died. Esther is now the most powerful woman in the world. 127 countries to the 127 years of Sarah. And again, the book is just full of this. We'll go through a few more, but yeah. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I think that's amazing. And there's just something else that I want to mention is the difference between Haman and Achashverosh. But both of them started on the negative side. But because Achashverosh listened to his woman, that was the way, no, the sages actually say that. Because he was able to change, he couldn't change the decree. He made the decree, and that was more the decree that God made, the King of Kings made. He had to go through doing repentance and siding on the right side. He was able to overcome that decree with another decree. But guys, that means that sometimes there is a massive decree out there. It cannot be changed, but it still depends on our works that we can actually, to supersede it. Nafochu, to get over to that side. And that's the difference between Achashverosh, that at the end of the day was able to make that shift, where Haman couldn't. And he hung himself at the end because it was on his own tree that he got hanged.
Right on. Yeah. And this story, the story of Esther, I mean, it's basically, this is a story of things to come. So not only in the world to come, which we discussed in the earlier part, but also in the end of days, because the story was all about the Jews, right? I mean, it says, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushana bira u'shmo Mordechai. A Jewish man, but it said Ish Yemini. In other words, he was absolutely from the tribe of Benjamin, yet he was considered a Jew, right? Now, there's a secret of the Yud that is in Megillat Esther. Now, we know the four-letter name of God, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and then the Hey, right? So the Yud represents Chokhmah, the supernal wisdom. The upper Hey represents Binah, which is understanding. The Vav represents the 6 middle sfirot, the Zeir Anpin, and the lower Hey represents Malchut, the kingdom, which we are currently in. So, the yes, I got it.
It's not that easy to be a superhero.
I know. How do they do it? So anyway, so the secret of the Yud, right? So the supernal Yud is all the way up there. As we know right now, that Moses, only after his death, was able to attain that level. No one else, he's the only person ever, after his death, was able to attain that level. During his lifetime, only in the end of his life, he was able to attain the 50 gates, last hour of his life, and Rabbi Akiva, it was basically a continuation from Moses. He was able to attain it during his life because of what Moses did. Anyway, so just so you have a little background. So the supernal wisdom, Chokhmah, was the thought that God had of creating all things before Binah, because from Binah came out the letters already. So it's just like, hopefully some of us do, some of us don't, think before we do things. And, so basically getting into that Yud. So now Haman, Amalek, was no fool at all, really. None of these guys are fools, okay? He knew our secrets. In fact, he knew most of our secrets. He kind of screwed up with some, but he knew most of our secrets. But just because he knows something, it doesn't mean anything to God, especially if your desire is to obliterate his people. So great. Learn, know everything. It doesn't matter. When Haman paid Achashverosh 10,000 pieces of silver, in Hebrew it's read as aseret alafim. That's how you say 10,000. Or, without the punctuation, aseret alefim. Alefim as in alephs. Aleph is one. I want 10 ones, meaning I want 10. He was trying to acquire the yud of supernal wisdom. Look at the chutzpah of this guy. Now, when it describes even the height of the tree, how tall is a tree? 50 amah, right? 50 amot to hang Mordechai. So the tree also represents the 50 levels of binah, whether it's purity or impurity. And if you think about it, the way it was described, the tree, the gova or gavoha 50 amah, it's missing the letter vav, which leaves the letters gimel, bet, and hey, which is the numerical value of 10. You see this? It's all over the place. So this is hidden everywhere within Megillat Esther. We also have the 10 sons of Haman and the Nuremberg trial and all that stuff. Anyways, a lot of things in there. So just some numbers.
Also makes me think of, the arrogance by which Amalek always jumps in thinking that they can actually do it. Until the end of days, they will always think that they will be able to do it, and then it's going to turn on them. But you've been giving some amazing figures, and now I just want to share with you guys a beautiful thing that goes together with Adar, because this year we are in a double Adar. And what do we call it if we have a double Adar?
Shana me'uberet.
There we go. So the word is ibur, which means an impregnation, a double one. Okay, so what's happening here is I want to show you how the rabbis were really able to extrapolate so much and build and understand the Oral Torah. So I want to explain how did they get to this. Because let's just quickly think about it. Why do we have to have the double month of Adar? Because we have to add another month. Because we run out of days, and somewhere there's a discrepancy. How do we get there? We have the lunar month or the lunar cycle. And usually which religion follows that?
That's the Muslims.
Okay, Islam, right? Because they go only by the lunar month. That's why Ramadan will always shift right through the year. And then the Christians follow which one?
The solar.
The solar, the Gregorian. And that's the main ruling calendar as we are today. But then in God's world, we need to factor in both. And this is where God gave Moshe the Oral Torah to reconcile the two. As living in Israel, we have to go according to the seasons, which is the solar, according to agriculture. And we have to keep our seasons according to that and our Chagim. But our Chagim are according to the lunar. So now there needs to be reconciliation. And I want you to understand that there's always these paradoxes that need to be reconciled. And it's so beautiful to see how the Torah always and the Jewish life actually does that. So the current calculation according to NASA on a lunar month is...
Wait, let me tell you. I forgot. It'll come to me. Go.
Okay. So the normal synodic month according to NASA is 29.530588888853.
853. Exactly. See? I got it.
He just knows so many things.
I knew that
He's one. Captain America.
I'll be retired.
And he can do this all day. Okay, so let's see how the sages now explain how did they get to theirs. Now we have Rabban Gamliel, and he was round about when?
It was about 90 CE.
Okay, so that's 20 years after the destruction of the temple, okay? So here he comes, and he's the head of the ancient Jewish Supreme Court, which is called the...
Sanhedrin.
There we go. And he said, it is acceptable from the house of the father of my father. This is very important. Remember, the Oral Torah actually came from Moshe, and it was carried by mouth orally from father to son all the time, right?
Yeah.
Why did we write it down?
Well, because eventually we were going to, who was it? It was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He saw that we were going to be obliterated.
The nation got too weak.
Yeah, and so you had to write these things down, otherwise there'd be nothing left to remember.
And this is where it happened during the Babylonian exile that got us to the times of Esther. The rabbis really saw that the nation is getting really weak, and they don't have the koach, the strength to pass everything on from son to son. Okay, from father to son. And
if I just may, during the 40 years, when we read the story of the Exodus and their entire time in the desert, for 40 years, we only have maybe about a year of that time worth of stories, right?
Yeah.
In other words, it's the beginning and then it's the end. What do you think Moses... Yeah, in that time, what do you think Moses was doing for 40 years? 40 years they had to live, and he was implementing the oral law into the written law.
And that's where we get Vishanantam levenecha v'dibarta bam. You have to all over, when you walk, when you sit, when you lie, when you go, you have to keep on passing this to your children and to your sons. Okay, so this is, he said, from father to father, this is what we got. The renewal of the moon is not less than 29 days and a half and 2/3 of an hour and 73 parts.
I knew
Boom.
that.
How easy is that? Talmud Rosh Hashanah 25. Okay, now the 73 parts refer to the division of the hour, which is 1080. How do we know that? Because the Rambam explains it. And this is what he says. The hour is divided into 1080 because according to this, you counting, and this is how he speaks. Just listen to this, guys, and don't try to take it in. I just want you to see how the rabbis got to these things. Counting you halves, quarters, 8/3, 9ths, 5ths, and 10ths. Boom, and that's how you get 29 days and 12 hours of the 30th day from the beginning of its night and 793 parts from the 13th hour. This is the time between one renewal and the next, and this is the moon month. Okay.
You get that?
And what did they get there? What did they calculate? And I'll give it to you right here. They calculated in all of this. They were literally 0.00005 out from what NASA has. This is amazing, right? They got it to.
How did they know?
29.53059. Exactly the same. I want you to understand that this is what's really going on in the Oral Torah. Why? Because we have to get our timing correct when we do all these festivals.
Don't trust NASA. We said it first.
I would probably say that when we come to these calculations, the sages would have got it right and NASA would be a little bit off. They got it first anyway.
Truth.
How were the sages of ancient times able to get it to the 5th decimal? So hold on to your seats because I want to just take you a little bit deeper into this. We start at the calculation. Now this is where, if you didn't have this inside information, they were never able to calculate this. What did they know? We start the calculation of the exact time of when the first lunar month started. And according to the Jewish tradition, the first month started on...
Nisan.
Yeah, no, Rosh Hashanah.
What do you mean? Oh, when we started or when the world starts?
So creation happened.
Excuse me. Oh, creation, yes, on Aleph Tishrei.
Rosh Hashanah, and 5 days before that.
Actually, it's Kaf Hey.
There we go.
That's a creation of the world, and then Adam was technically born on Aleph Tishrei.
Okay, so that means that Rosh Hashanah is the birth of Adam. Right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And 5 days before that, 25th of Elul, that's when creation started. Mm-hmm. Well spotted.
That's my dad's birthday.
So, yeah. Adam was created on the 6th day. This is written Torah. Okay, now we jump to the Oral Torah. And this is even more exact. And this is what they know that was passed on from Moshe from generation to generation. He was created. And you can actually see that in Pirkei Avot. The first few verses in Pirkei Avot says it was passed from Moshe to this, to that, to that, to that. So you can actually see the line, and that line has never been broken. So the Oral Torah tells us that he was created on the 6th day after the 14th hour since sunset of the previous day, which is the beginning of the 3rd hour into the 6th day. Remember, we have 12 hours night, 12 hours day. So therefore, the 14th hour of the 6th day is 15, that is, after the 14th hour is 15, right? 15 minus 12, 12 hours night gives you 3 hours, and that's how they got to that. This is symbolized by what we call Vav Yud Dalet, Mulad V'Yad. Okay? So you have... Here you have the Vav, which is the 6th day. Mm-hmm. And then you have Yud and Dalet, which brings you to 14, which means after the 14th hour. This is what they understood. This is what they were given. Now, this is the first lunar month that we call Mulad V'Yad. This is Oral Torah. Now we jump to the written Torah. What do we know there? To understand how that happened, we have to now create a whole imaginary year back and then work forwards. This is how they did it. So 12 months to create the imaginary year since the world was created 5 days earlier, just like you said. Now, the sages read within the first letters of Bereshit, of Genesis. according to them, it's called the Mulad of Tohu. What do we get? The first letter in Genesis is?
Bet.
Bet. 42 letters after that we have Hey. 42 letters after that we have Resh. And 42 letters after that we have Dalet. Stick with me, guys. We're almost there. So, why is this? 42 has all to do with the creation. And that's why we have the 42 letter name of God that we pray, and that is called the Ana B'Koach prayer. Did you know that when you go according to the letters of Ana B'Koach, you can literally take yourself out of this world, out of this system that holds us right now, bring you right back to creation, grab the perfection of creation and bring it right back into your world. That is the power of the 42 letter name of God that we have in the Ana B'Koach prayer. Mm-hmm. And that's why the letters, the 42 intervals, play such an important role in understanding creation and how we get to this specific calculation. Okay, now we have what they called Baharat. Bet is 2, right?
Oh, the numerical value. Yes. Bet is 2.
So that takes us to the second day, which was Monday. Okay, then we have, because Sunday is the first day, Monday. Okay, so, and then we have Hey, and Hey is? And that is 5 hours. And then we have the Resh, which is?
200.
And Dalet, that is?
4.
And that gives us 204 part of the 1080 parts already. I know this is much to take in. What I'm trying to show you is how they took all these things that were given to them, passed down, and how they took the oral Torah and the written Torah and what was extrapolated from that. And all of that was necessary when they then start to take both of these, the Mulad of the Tohu and the Mulad of Veyad, and they took those together and they meshed it up. I'm not going to give you the formula. It's going to take too long. They realigned it, and that's where they got exactly to the 29.5. And they're 5 decimals out from NASA. So why is this so important? And why did I take us through this whole rigmarole right here? Is to show you how the written Torah and the oral Torah is absolutely necessary to get to a 0.00005 decimal for us to live exactly according to God's timing. Both the written and oral are necessary to calculate this, just as we know that the solar and the lunar cycles are necessary, but we need that thing right there in between. Okay, so the oral Torah reconciliates or reconciles many polarities that we find in the written Torah. Therefore, when referring to the secret of the Ibur, the sages said, they took Ezekiel 13 verse 9 and said, this is how you will know who is Israel and who is not. Listen to this. Ezekiel 13 verse 9 says, my hand shall be against the prophets who see false visions and utter lying divinations. They shall not belong to the council, or the literal word is the secret of my people, which is the secret of the Ibur, of the double month of Adar, and how you can calculate that. And you can only calculate it when you have the oral Torah. They will not belong to the council of my people, or be listed in the records of the house of Israel, nor will they enter into the land of Israel. Guys, Hashem in his wisdom has made the oral law through the doctrine of some faiths completely abominable in the eyes of the non-Jews. It is preached out there that you should not touch it. Wonderful, by the wisdom of God, because he knew that if they get their hands on that and they put the thing together, like Haman trying to take the secrets out, it's going to turn on them. Okay, it is by these very halachot, these ones, where the secret lies to be part of the Jewish people and ultimately live as a fully fledged Jew in the land of Israel.
Amen.
That is the beauty of the oral Torah. All the halachot, guys, and you saw right now how they really extrapolated from it, and how that is the only thing that brings us to living in Israel again and take us into the redemption on the other side.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. And now you know. So good luck getting there. Of course, if you start learning the oral Torah as a non-Jew, you will quickly see that in order for you to actually grasp anything or even act it out, you must be a Jew. Right? You have to go through these things. And speaking of reconciling with our brothers and lost brothers. The last point, very brief, I just want to make on Purim. So the biggest and first rift that we could see between amongst the brothers was the story of Joseph, right? So Purim actually serves as a reconciliation for the sale of Joseph. Now,
can you see that? It's always a reconciliation.
Yeah,
there's always two parts that needs to come together.
It's a tikkun, and once all Israel are together as one, that's when that's where you're going to have Mashiach. That's where you're going to have the temple, and then we go into Olam Haba. In other words, these are the final stages to get into that. So the sale of Joseph, was done between 9 out of his 11 brothers. Remember, Benjamin was still with his father at the camp, and Reuben was not there at the time. So you had 9 brothers. Now, I haven't gone into this teaching yet, and perhaps I will another time, but just know this. We celebrate Purim on the 14th and the 15th of Adar, right? Which in Hebrew is Yud Daled and Tetvav. Mm-hmm. Yud Daled and Tetvav, together they make 29, which is Kaftet. Now, how many pieces of silver did they sell Joseph for? They sold him for 20 pieces of silver.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So in other words, you have the 2 days of Purim, Yud Daled and Tetvav, which equals 29, which does a rectification for the 20 pieces of silver sold by the 9 brothers. There's your 29 right there. And so once we can actually bring all the tribes in, and once we do peace, and once we have reconciliation, we could already get this show on the road, that which we've been waiting for close to 6,000 years now. I for one, am looking forward to it.
I'm very excited. And the glue, the reconciliation in all of this is the acceptance of the full Torah, which the Jews made on Purim.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Yehudah, remember, everything comes through Judah. And if you have a problem with Judah, then you ain't part of Israel. That's really the bottom line. All right. So I think we're good, yeah?
I think we're good. I hope that we've shared some stuff with you guys today that will help you in your walk. Guys, it is Purim. You have to work in your simcha. It is the simcha that shatters absolutely the darkness around us. Mm-hmm. It is in that simcha that you can go right down and take out the netzutzot and make that tikkun that you have to. It allows you to safely go in to make that tikkun and to take your tafkid, your calling in life, just so much further. So I wish you guys, together with this crazy guy, a Purim Sameach, so that we will absolutely double and triple our joy in these days to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you didn't laugh during this session, you have no soul. Happy Purim, everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Bye-bye.